we're going to come into some of the fun stuff. We're going to talk about 12 different ways to stop a foreclosure. There's probably more than 12 out there, but these are the 12 that I know of. If you find out of some other ones, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to pick your brains about them because these are the 12 ways that I know of. So going through that, what are the potential outcomes of stopping a foreclosure? I mean, we might be able to get it stopped, but you might have to sell your house. You might not have to sell your house. And the honest answer is there's only really two options here. Either you're going to be able to catch it up on your own and keep it, or you're going to have to sell it. And there's different ways to accomplish both. So either way around, the results of these 12 different ways to stop it's going to either end up with them keeping the house or selling it or losing it. So let's go through and take a look at some of the ways that they might be able to keep the house. Okay, so we might be able to structure a repayment plan, or the borrower may be able to structure a repayment plan with the lender that says something along the lines of, you know what, give me 6 months, 9 months, 3 months, generally not more than a year. Give me 3, 6, 9 months to catch up on my payments. You know, I lost my job, or, you know, I had an unexpected bill show up. Give me 6 months to pay this back. I will pay it back to you in 6 monthly payments. And at the end of these 6 monthly payments, I will be caught up and you won't foreclose on my house. This is an option. More often than not, though, your seller is going to be in a financial situation that this does not make sense. But if you come across a seller that happens to have, you know, corrected their problems, they've got the income coming in, they just got behind for a period of time and the bank moved fast, this might be an option that they might be able to present to them to possibly catch back up on their mortgage. People that this doesn't work out so well for, they haven't made a payment in 3 years. I mean, come on, they're not going to be able to catch that up. You know, but you get somebody in there with a very short payoff period, this might be an opportunity for you to help them save their house. So what else do we have next? Here's an interesting one. This is an opportunity for someone to potentially keep their house, and it's called what's called a partial FHA claim. Now, I'm going to link a document below for this specific piece because there's a lot to learn about there. There's some pretty interesting facts, timelines, and figures that you have to go through. But this right here is a interesting way to get the seller caught up if they have an FHA loan. Now, there's a lot of stuff to go through on that. I'm not going to read that document that I've linked below verbatim, but read up on this. Like if somebody's 6 months behind on their mortgage and they can prove that they can repay or continue affording to make the loan payments, then essentially what FHA will do is come in and catch up their past due payments for them. And in return, FHA gets a lien on the back end of their note that can absolutely never be shorted. If you don't know what shorts are, watch that video in our other strategy sessions. But you can short it. You can never short an FHA loan. So overall, it's really neat. Not many people know about it. There is a lot of timelines that have to be met by not only the borrower, but the lender as well. So if the borrower is in a period of time that this could work for them, it might be a good option to let them know about it and see if they can get FHA to catch them up. Once again, they need to be able to afford the loan payment for this to work out. So if they still don't have a job and they don't have any, you know, foreseeable job coming up in the future, this might not work for them. Okay. Another option that we might be able to put together for them is what's going to be a forbearance agreement. Essentially, a forbearance agreement is going to be the bank agreeing to postpone the foreclosure for me. You know, they're going to say, give me 90 days to get this problem solved. And in the end of 90 days, do whatever you need to do, but give me at least 90 days to get this resolved, or give me at least 30 days, 60 days. The bank has the right to postpone the auction. So a forbearance agreement may be a way for them if they just need a little bit more time to get that postponed. It might work for you also as a real estate investor. If you're trying to get this property closed and you need a little bit more time, you may be able to request a forbearance and get them to push that foreclosure auction back. So that's a good toolkit to have in their toolbox, or a good tool to have in your tool. You get the point. All right, forbearance agreement. Loan modifications. Loan modification is another way that they might potentially be able to stay in the house. Of all of the other ways, I think this one right here is I don't know how to say that. A lot of people look at this, a lot of sellers look at this as like the win-win, where they're going to be able to keep their house and the bank's going to get to be happy and everything. But more often than not, I see horror stories coming out of the loan modification side where, I spent 7 months trying to get the loan modification. The whole time I'm in this, they're telling me not to make payments, and I get through it 7 months in, and they're always telling me, oh, we lost your paperwork, we got your paperwork, we don't got your paperwork, we need this paperwork that you've already submitted. And after 7 months of that, they never get approved, and or nothing ever happens and the property goes to foreclosure. A lot of horror stories that come through that. So loan modification, though, is where the bank agrees to modify the terms of the loan to try and help this person get caught up. But ultimately, it has nothing to do with helping them get caught up. A lot of times the payments go up, the interest rates go up, things change so much that they can't afford it anyways, and they end up in foreclosure again. So a lot of the times with loan modifications, they're available. I'm not really a big fan of them. Now, I've got some off the head statistics that were quoted to me way back in the day, but like out of 300,000 applications to Bank of America for loan modification, only like 300 of them were actually accepted back in like 2007, 8. I don't even know if those are real statistics. Those were just statistics told to me. But if you put those into perspective, 300 out of 300,000 applicants, that's a pretty bad chance of actually getting a loan modification. So we're going to take a short break here because that gets boring, and we're going to have some fun. Let's talk about some other things. So when we're out here on appointments, some good examples, like I'll show up at somebody's house and they're going to be like, hey, you know what? I've got this handled. I'm going to do a loan modification. I'm going to do this or that. You really need to press in deeper. You need to get in there, and because a lot of times you're going to use these as stall tactics or to defer you from talking to them. They're going to say something like, oh, I've already got it solved. I've got a loan modification going. Don't let the conversation end there. Dig in a little bit deeper. Who are you working with? Have you already filed your loan modification packet? Oh no, I'm just, that's what I've been getting letters saying that I can do a loan modification. That's what I'm going to do. Well, let me explain to you really quickly some of the benefits and drawbacks to loan modifications, and not only take my word for it, let me show you some of the reviews online of how these loan modifications are working and how a lot of people are not really winning with this. So don't let the seller just put the brakes and stop you there. Always try to divert the question back and drill in deeper to find out if they truly do have it solved. Sometimes you'll talk to a seller, oh, you know what, I got my uncle, or I got my cousin, or I got my sister, they'll loan me the money to catch up. And I was like, well, how far behind are you, if you don't mind me asking? And sometimes they'll let you dig in a little bit. They're just trying to push you off because they're nervous, they don't want to talk. But they'll start saying, well, I don't really know. Well, when was the last time that you made a payment on the house? 7 months ago, 8 months ago. Find out, I'm $8,000 behind. Well, if your monthly payment is $1,000 a month and you haven't made a payment in 8 months, you're probably $8,000 behind. So if you're talking with these people and they start bringing up some of these alternatives, and you might need to just dig in a little deeper and figure out what to do from there. Keeping the house. They might be able to refinance the property. Might. Now that really has a whole lot of things going on there. To refinance on the property, they're gonna need to be able to essentially qualify for a bank loan. Now sometimes they are only a little bit behind, and for whatever reason they just don't have the money, but they've got good credit, and there's 3 late payments are really the only thing they're dealing with, and they got a lot of equity. There might be an opportunity to refinance if there's some equity there to get themselves caught back up, but that's normally for people that could qualify for a loan again. Let's say they've been reemployed, maybe they got laid off for 4 months, they got 4 months behind, they just got a job and they're in a position. An opportunity might be to refinance the property and get them to be able to keep it. So as you're going through and you're talking with your sellers, you're going to find out a lot more about what position they're in financially, as far as, do they got a job again? How far behind are they really? Are the arrears being past due payments? Are the arrears totaling, more than what they could probably keep up with? If somebody's making $70,000 a year and they got $200,000 in arrears, they're probably not catching up. But if somebody's making $70,000 a year and they got $7,000 in arrears, they might be able to catch that up. They just need to figure out how to get it done. So when you're on these appointments, kind of judge where they're at in their life and see if you can start maybe offering some of these alternatives to foreclosure to give them an opportunity to miss out on the foreclosure and keep their house. So if we keep going through these, here's another one. This one is rare, but it is out there. It's called a short refinance. A short refinance, if you haven't seen Short Sales in the Academy yet, go check out that video series talking about shorts. But it's where they refinance your property at a short payoff. So that way, instead of paying, let's say your original loan balance was $180,000, They'll refinance you at $140,000, the present value of the house, and you can start making payments based on that $140,000 payoff versus the original $180,000. So that's a short refi. That might be a good point where, like, let's say somebody wants to keep their house, they're a little behind, but the market that they were in depreciated by 50%, and now she could probably just, let the property go and go find another house cheaper for far less money. Well, this might be an instance where the bank would just say, it's just a short refi with her. We're not going to be able to get what she owes out of it anyways. So that's just another example of a possible way to stop a foreclosure. So here's another one. This is an interesting way to stop a foreclosure. I've never personally done one. I've attempted to do it on 2 or 3 different occasions. Of the 2 or 3, I didn't see the feasibility behind it because I was required to pay close to $3,000 to $1,000 or so in attorney fees, and it wasn't even anywhere close to a guaranteed that it would occur, at least not here in Texas, after getting counseled from several attorneys. But what the temporary restraining order is basically I'm going to petition a judge or a court system for a restraining order against the bank to get them to halt all proceedings. Now here in Texas, at the very least, we have to have significant reason to prove that bank should stop. Falsified documents, something's wrong. From what I've been told from my counsel, once again, I'm just relaying this. There's no personal experience here. What I was told is that it's very unlikely that the judge would give us the order based upon why we can't just go in and say, I want a temporary restraining order because I haven't moved out yet. That's not how it works. They have to have a legitimate reason to claim that they need the restraining order against the bank. And from what my counsel has told me is they need falsified documents, missing documents, proof of this, proof of that. So if you want to go through that, you've got a really killer lead. You might have that if you got an attorney in your pocket. Make sure the attorney is on your team because they're very important to have in these types of transactions. But yeah, that is an option for getting a foreclosure stopped. And if the courts do give you the restraining order, boom, it's done. Foreclosure is stopped immediately. So that could be used for the person to keep the home or help you as an investor, give you more time to buy the home. So temporary restraining order can be used for either. Another one that can be used for either is a bankruptcy. This thing is like the holy grail of real estate investing, immediate foreclosure stoppages. If you need a foreclosure stopped, bankruptcy will immediately stop the foreclosure. Your laws vary from state to state, but 100% of my knowledge that I'd argue with you on right now is bankruptcy will stop the foreclosure instantaneously. So this is, I don't want to call it awesome because that's kind of, I'm not trying to make fun of this. I'm not trying to have fun with this, but overall, if you're an investor and you're 5 hours before an auction and everything is saying you've got a great deal, this needs to be done, bankruptcy is an immediate stop. Like if a property goes to auction and it sells in the middle of the day at, let's say, 3:36 p.m. At 3:36 p.m., bank goes to auction, but the seller filed bankruptcy at 3:35 p.m., 1 minute beforehand. That auction that went through would be reversed. It would all be backed out and it would go back to the seller. Bankruptcy is that powerful. So it is very important. Like if you've got a seller that is, let's say here, I've got a seller coming to me and, they are massively underwater, like all of their boats, their Sea-Doos, their recreational vehicles, all 5 of their cars, their house and all their credit cards are maxed out and they're not making payments on any of them. It might be time for this person to consider bankruptcy. But if somebody's just in a pinch, let's say they got divorced, they can no longer afford the property, and that's the only thing affecting their credit is that house, it might not be a good option to file bankruptcy. I'm not a consultant on bankruptcy attorneys. I'm not an attorney on bankruptcy. Obviously, I'm not an attorney on all this. But right now, think about it. If the only problem they have is the house, they might not want the bankruptcy on their record, especially if, as a real estate investor, I can solve this problem for them pretty easily without going to bankruptcy. Bankruptcy will often be used for those sellers that are just massively in debt. That might be a good point in time where you're you might ought to just consider bankruptcy to help you solve this. But the true use of the bankruptcy for us as a real estate investor and or a struggling homeowner that has a solution, they just need more time, it is a option to buy more time. Bankruptcy will immediately stop the foreclosure. And one other thought process in behind that is if you do have a seller that is in just absolute denial, you've talked with them, you know for a fact they can no longer afford this home, there's no way they're ever going to be able to afford it, and they're choosing to file bankruptcy as a means to postpone the auction, that is not a dead lead for you. You need to continue following up with it through the bankruptcy proceedings because they're going to end up getting kicked out of the bankruptcy. And when they do, step in, offer up the short sale, get it purchased, whatever you need to do, get that property under contract. Just follow up with them as they go through bankruptcy. I do like to consider that like the magic fairy dust of real estate investing. There is no, as far as foreclosures go, I don't know of a simpler way to guarantee the stop of a foreclosure other than buying the house cash that will instantaneously get you a foreclosure stopped. So here's some other ideas. We could pay off the arrears. Arrears being the past due payments totaled up, that's your total arrears. We could find out what their full reinstatement amount is and make the payment in full. So on the seller side, some things that when you're at the house that you might think about is let's say they are $5,000 behind on rent and they can continue making the payments moving forward. They're stabilized, but they're $5,000 behind and they just can't catch up. Well, you know what? They got 3 cars in the front yard. There's only 2 of them living there. Could you maybe sell one of the cars? Maybe I see you got that boat out there. Don't hang me from the ceiling, husband, but maybe you sell your boat and we'll get to keep the house. We got to think about some different things going on there and try to, maybe find out a way to help these people get their financial situation back in order. Sometimes they don't realize it when the answer is truly as simple as, we'll just sell the boat, we'll get another one in the future, but at least we'll get to keep the house. So another option for paying off the arrears for you as an investor is, maybe I could go in there, pay off the arrears and purchase that property subject to. So, subject to would be an opportunity for me to take deed to the home, leave the title in take the deed to the home, leave the debt in the seller's name, and then take ownership of that home by just paying off the arrears. Subject to opportunities come up a lot when you're investing in foreclosures. So this is a good tool to have in your tool belt. If you want to learn more about subject to investing, check out Grant Kemp's video series there in the strategy section of the Academy. So great opportunity right there for the seller either to keep the house or you as the investor to purchase it subject to. Great opportunity there. So this is a give up the house scenario. This right here is a for sure, you're not going to keep the house, we're moving on down the road. And that is a deed in lieu. So deed in lieu is the seller, or not the seller, the homeowner approaching the bank and saying, you know what, I can no longer afford the house. Instead of you going through the entire foreclosure process and doing all that, let me give you the deed to the house. I'll just give you the house back. You don't foreclose on me and we both walk our separate ways. That is what a deed in lieu is called. It can be done. Many banks will not accept a deed in lieu though, and that's because the foreclosure process is there for a reason. The foreclosure process, like you've learned in our previous videos, wipes the slate clean. What happens if the bank takes the deed in lieu just to find out that there's other encumbrances of title? That does not set well with them because they could end up with a jeopardized title that they can no longer sell at the full value. Deed in lieu often does not work out for the banks. Depending on your states may have different laws that make it more pleasing, I guess, for a bank to accept deed in lieu. Like here in Texas, many people don't realize, and I don't want to butcher the law because I don't have it memorized exactly, but it's something along the lines of if a bank accepts a deed in lieu in Texas and they find out that there's any issue with title within the next 2 years, the bank can reverse the deed in lieu and foreclose to clear title. So that is a law, and I don't want to butcher it. I just know the general logistics of it. That is here in Texas that might help a bank accept a deed in lieu. Your states may vary. Another option for giving up the house is going to be a short sale. For those of you that are not familiar with short sales, I'll explain it briefly here, but we do have a whole video section on that in the Academy under the strategy section. Short sale, let's put it this way. I owe the bank $200,000. It's only worth $100,000. But I owe the bank $200,000 on it. A short sale is convincing the bank by, looking at appraisals through, broker's price opinions. Hey, the house is only worth $100. Even though I owe you $200, I can't afford it no more. I got to sell it. The best you're ever going to get for it's $100. Just let me sell the house for $100,000. The bank accepting that short payoff is what a short sale is. They're owed $200. They agree to let you sell it for $100, shorting their payoff $100,000. That's why they call it a short sale. They got a short payoff. So that's what a short sale is going to be. Another option for giving up the house is basically pay off the loan balance. That will immediately stop the foreclosure. If you pay off the entire loan balance, the foreclosure will be stopped. And for you as a real estate investor, this is quite often the option that we're going to end up having to settle on. Paying off the loan balance means I'm going to buy the house. If I purchase the house from the bank before you go to auction, not only will you be able to capture your equity and any other time and or terms that you put into this purchase agreement, this is going to give you the best benefit from me as a real estate investor to you, is I can buy your house and I can do it in a very short period of time, and I can get you top dollar depending on how you allow me to buy that. I could possibly pay full retail for it if you allow me to purchase it in monthly installments over a period of time, or I can buy that from you cash in the matter of just maybe as little as 48 hours. So give me a phone call, and that is how I can save your home. So those are just like some little pitches that you might be able to throw out. But paying off the loan balance is, for you as a real estate investor, the number one strategy that you're probably going to go after. Paying off loan balances gets you the properties. What about, short sales that might be able to once again get you a property, or subject to wraps, all different types of ways of acquiring these properties. But those are right there are the 12 different ways to stop a foreclosure. If you know of other ways out there that I didn't mention in this and that you think are worth noting, drop them in the comments below. Let's discuss it. If it seems like something that's just badass and I've never heard of before, we'll go ahead and reshoot this video and add that on. So feel free to join in on the conversation and keep this learning environment growing. So any other questions before I pass out? I don't think so. I'm going to go ahead and sign off of this video. Have a good day.